This week on Aussie Jetsetter, we're flying to the United States of America. We're flying on the national carrier of Australia, all the way from Sydney to the beautiful Hawaiian capital of Honolulu. And to get there, we're journeying on the Flying Kangaroo's Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner, which is more commonly renowned for operating some of the world's longest ultra-long-haul flights. In the process, we get to understand some of the extra complexities of travelling on US-bound flights. We get to experience the amazing former Etihad Lounge in Sydney, and we see how flying on an ultra-long-haul configured aircraft on the shortest direct connection between Australia and the US makes this flight to Honolulu a real winner and positions Hawaii as a great stopover destination en route to the mainland of the US. So without further ado, come join me as I kickstart my amazing US adventure to come with 9 hours on the amazing Qantas Dreamliner, 3/4 of the way across the Pacific to Honolulu. Good afternoon and welcome to what is arguably Australia's most internationally renowned, most iconic city. That is of course the beautiful harbour city of Sydney here in New South Wales. We're down here at Kirribilli Point, one of the most prestigious vantage points in the whole of Sydney. You can see the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge, also the Sydney Opera House behind me, and of course the spectacular Sydney skyline, Circular Quay, the rocks and all that. We had a great, just a one night stay here in Sydney. We actually caught the very long XPT service, a 12-hour journey up from Melbourne yesterday. Really good experience, definitely has its pros and cons, but well worth doing it for the experience nonetheless. And yeah, this morning we've just had a quick little overnight stay in Sydney. But yeah, I spent the morning checking out the new metro system here in Sydney. It's absolutely spectacular, well recommend you try. And yeah, just gone down to Kirribilli Point to check out some views of the city. But very excitingly, this evening we're going to be flying to the good old US of A. The first time I've been in the States in about 7 years now. So first time since 2018. And we're going to be flying on Qantas on a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. But we're not going to be going quite the whole way across the Pacific this evening. We're actually going to be flying to the island state of Hawaii, Honolulu to be precise. And this will mark my international departure from my summertime travelling around Australia over the course of the January holiday period. So yeah, we're going to be heading over to the States, going to be spending a week or so in Hawaii, then we're going to be flying over to California, San Diego, we're going to be flying to Denver, we're even going to be flying to San Francisco. Then we're going to be coming back to Australia via Fiji. So very, very exciting itinerary to come. So yeah, we are flying on the 787-9 Dreamliner with Qantas tonight. Last time I actually flew on the Dreamliner with Qantas was back in 2019. I got the mammoth direct flight all the way from Perth to London. Real pity I didn't have the YouTube channel at the time. That would have been an absolutely amazing one to document. Pity it's just way too expensive to realistically be able to do it or review it these days. And yeah, you can almost forget about redeeming it with points. So yeah, it's 9 hours and 40 minutes to Honolulu tonight. I'm still trying to get my head around the ridiculous change in time zone. It's 21 hours behind here in Sydney. So yeah, it's a Sunday afternoon here in Sydney, and somehow I'm going to arrive on the same day on a Sunday morning, probably about 12 hours before I actually left. Anyway, on to tonight's route. The route between Australia and Hawaii is definitely the quickest way you can travel to the United States. Brisbane may be slightly quicker than Sydney, I would suspect, but from here in Sydney, it's only 9 hours and 40 minutes, which is a good 3 or 4 hours quicker than to the mainland. Typical flights there are 13 to 15 hours from the east coast of Australia. As you may already be aware, when you fly to the United States from pretty well any destination, there's quite a few extra hoops you've got to go through compared to many other international destinations. So yeah, you don't have to have a visa per se, usually when you're just traveling as a tourist from Australia. That being said, you still got to get a visa waiver, which is an online application you've got to put in, ideally at least 72 hours prior to departure. Costs $21 US, and it is quite a lengthy form to prepare. You also got to do a US contact tracing form as well, which wasn't overly hard, but still another bit of paperwork you must do before check-in. You also got to go through extra layers of security. So there's a second layer of security once you go through the main area of security at Sydney Airport. This is just for the US flights. And yeah, even though I've checked in online, they actually won't give me my boarding pass till everything checks out. Interestingly enough, the only times I've actually travelled into the US by air has been through either Canada or the UAE, which both have pre-processing facilities available. So basically you clear customs and immigration in the third country before you arrive, essentially as a domestic passenger. So this time I'll be literally landing in America and happening to go through the process on American soil. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. We're going to allow plenty of time to get to the airport now, maybe about 3.5, 4 hours beforehand. Still got a couple hours to kill though, so going to catch up with a well-known popular Sydney aviation YouTuber, Luke from Young Aussie Fly, that is. It's going to show me around the best parts of Sydney for the next few hours, so really looking forward to that. And then yeah, come join me, we'll head to Sydney Airport, we'll get checked in and we'll head to America. Should be a good experience. Let's do this. So after an action-packed morning here in Sydney, where I got to ride the latest stage of Sydney's very impressive driverless metro network all the way under the Sydney Harbour to North Sydney, then I walked all the way back over the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Caught up with Young Aussie Flyer there, explored a bit of downtown Sydney for a bit, then we got back on the metro, this time going to the nearby station of Sydenham, where he had parked his car and has kindly offered to drop me off at the airport. Even better, en route, he's going to show me some of the really cool spots around Sydney Airport that are pretty hard to visit without access to a vehicle. Whilst I have been to Sydney's iconic Sheps Mound for plane spotting before, today we're going to somewhere different for the first time. I'm going to the well-known beach in Mascot, overlooking the two parallel runways. Ironically, it's just generically known as the beach. Sadly, not enough time to do a proper plane spotting special here today, but yeah, enough time to see an Etihad 787 take off for Abu Dhabi and also an impressive Qantas A380 take off. That also wasn't before noticing the absolutely shocking state of rubbish build-up on the beach. Sure, I understand probably how it got there, but yeah, still absolutely disgraceful that nothing's been done to clean it up nor address the root cause of how it got there in the first place. Anyway, off to Sydney Airport we go now. Always amazed at how close Sydney Airport seems to be to the centre of the city. Only about 8 kilometres to be precise. Always a very built up area around the airport here in Sydney, which is partly industrial due to the nearby port, but also highly residential. And just like that folks, welcome to Sydney Kingston Smith International Airport. We're up here on the level A of the car park across the road from the terminal. Great views out over the airfield behind me. Anyway, once again, huge thank you to Luke, otherwise known as a Young Aussie Flyer. Great spending the afternoon exploring a bit of Sydney, also getting a bit of a tour around Sydney Airport, all the different really cool plane spotting areas such as along the beach, along Botany Bay and all that sort of stuff. Really appreciate the lift to the airport as well. Really cool to explore the new Sydney Metro as well. So yeah, be sure to check out Luke's channel, Young Aussie Fly, if you haven't already. Do give it a subscribe as well if you do enjoy aviation content. Very, very consistent poster as well. Posts weekly trip reports every Friday, I think 8 o'clock Sydney time. So a lot more frequent than me, so be sure to check out that. Plenty of really interesting, thoughtful and definitely well-researched trip reviews there on very, very interesting airlines. Anyway, we've got a flight to catch in about 3.5 hours time. Got to the airport super early. As I was saying before, expecting a lot of extra hurdles for a direct flight to the US. First time actually flying direct between Australia and the US. So really interesting to see how smooth the experience will be like. Before we head into airport terminal, let's have a look at the route information for our flight QF103, 3/4 of the way across the Pacific this evening. Reserve flight time on this one is 9 hours and 40 minutes. Great circle distance comes in at 8,154 kilometers. Though tonight we're going to do it in a very comfortable, pretty well bang on 9 hours straight. Now as we make our way off the top of this massive multi-storey car park, should come no surprise to most people that Sydney Airport is indeed Australia's busiest airport. Actually the busiest airport in the whole of Oceania. Actually across its 3 runways, last year it serviced over 41,390,000 passengers, which is just shy under the peak record volume of passengers that was reached around about 2018 and 2019, just prior to the pandemic. Unsurprisingly, Sydney Airport still is the biggest international gateway in and out of Australia, recording over 16,300,000 passengers travelling internationally last year alone. For general passenger traffic here in Sydney, it's split up across 3 terminals across 2 precincts. So we're travelling out of International T1 today. However, on the other side of the airfield, you also got Terminal 2 and Terminal 3. Terminal 2 is generally used by Virgin Australia, Rex and Jetstar, whilst Terminal 3 is the exclusive hub of Qantas and Qantas Link domestic flights here in Sydney. For your information, if you do need to transfer between terminals for domestic flights here in Sydney, it's a pretty easy 5-minute or so walk, although you will have to re-go through security. From international to domestic and vice versa, a little bit more of a hassle however, if you have to get the landside T-bus transfer bus, or catch a public train, or maybe even get a complimentary airside bus transfer if you're flying with Qantas. Anyway, on to check-in for Qantas international flights here in Sydney. You'll find them located adjacent to row C. Unsurprisingly, being the biggest international operator out of Sydney, really is a big check-in area for the airline, with a huge amount of self-service check-in kiosks and self-service bag drops. For most Qantas international flights, it's just a matter of scanning your passport, bringing up your booking reference. Then you can check in and drop your bags. Not quite so easy however for US flights, as I'll explain once we clear immigration and customs. Anyway, on to security and immigration now. No express queue today as I'm not flying business class. Doesn't really matter however, as it's really quiet this time of day. Once you're through, pretty well like any Australian international airport, you'll be bombarded with the usual duty-free shopping options. Definitely a little bit better options here in Sydney compared to most international terminals in Australia, but at the end of the day, still usually a monopoly with your duty-free shops here in Australia. So yeah, it's not exactly that competitive in terms of pricing. Usually find really good savings are had to be on spirits due to Australia's high taxation. But for general merchandise, especially electronics and that sort of stuff, generally recommend you just buy it on the high street, especially when it's on special, and then you can claim the tourist refund scheme on top. And just like that, folks, are all checked in for our flight to Honolulu in Hawaii this evening. Even though you can't complete self-service check-in and baggage drop yourself, it's all pretty easy. All they do is confirm that you got your ESTA for the USA or your correct visa. They also do confirm your intention for travel. So if you've got genuine reason for travel, you've got nothing to worry about. Also, lastly, as a visitor to the US, they do ask to see proof of your onward return flight out of the country, which for me is Fiji. So long as you got all your documents in order, it's all good. Just allow a few extra moments. And lastly, there's a separate area for baggage drop for the USA flights. That's behind the main self-service area, so be sure to check out that to drop your bags for the US flight. But apart from that, very, very quiet check-in today. Despite all those extra procedures, still only took about 5 minutes. And yeah, immigration and security was super quick and easy as well. Only took another 5 minutes or so. I believe there will be one final TSA security check at the gate once we get closer to boarding, so I'll have to allow a little bit extra time for that. Apart from that, before we head to the house lounge through Priority Pass, just going to go to the tourist refund scheme, try and get some money back from my latest Insta360 camera. So let's see how that goes and we'll head to the lounge. And just like that, the TRS Tourist Refund Scheme process is now all complete. Definitely a best kept secret if you're not already aware of it. If you are going overseas or even to Norfolk Island, like I did from here this time about last year, just keep your receipts. If you spend over $300 in one or multiple visits to the same retailer with an ABN, you can claim the tax GST back, as long as you don't bring back more than $900 into Australia. Otherwise, you've got to declare it and pay dutiable taxes. Just a new camera for this trip, and a few other accessories. So close to $900, got $78 GST refund. So all really good. So now let's head to the house lounge and see what's like. And that's not before I just have to show you one of the coolest McDonald's, or Maccas as we call them here in Australia, in the whole world. And bizarrely, it just happens to be here in the food court of Sydney Airport. So essentially it has an upstairs kitchen and all the orders are delivered down to the lower level via this very cool robotic automated conveyor belt. How cool is that? Anyway, no need for a Big Mac or a quarter pounder today, as we're going over to the House Lounge, which used to be formerly the Etihad Lounge, which is a little bit of a walk from the main food court and in the general direction of gates 50 to 63. And just like that, welcome to the House Lounge here in Sydney. As I alluded to before, the really impressive House Lounge here in Sydney occupies a space formerly occupied by Etihad Airways. I believe they actually may have a new lounge here in Sydney, however. Lounge is primarily a pay-per-use public lounge here in Sydney. Also accepts cards such as Priority Pass, which we use today to get in. If you were to book online, 75 Australian dollars, perhaps a little bit more expensive at the door. Anyway, first impressions of this lounge as a first time visitor, overall really good range of comfortable seating options, and the self-serve buffet option is pretty substantial. Definitely a few good hot food options. Compared to the Sydney International Business Lounge, certainly a lot smaller compact lounge here in the house, but yeah, nonetheless a very comfortable, relaxing place to chill out. In terms of food and drinks, while the Qantas International Business Lounge is largely a self-service affair, here you got a fully tendered bar offering a good range of standard, non-alcoholic and alcoholic drink options. One really cool thing about this lounge is to have a premium add-on option. For an extra 20 Australian dollars, that unlocks an a la carte dining menu and premium alcoholic beverages such as cocktails. I didn't have the time today, but yeah, if you're on an extended stay here, it's probably well worth the extra upgrade. Anyway, after a very enjoyable hour and a half or so in the lounge, we do need to make our way over to Gate 10, where our flight to Honolulu is about to commence boarding. Anyway, now that we're at the gate where they're setting it up for the extra pre-departure security checks and checking everyone has their security sticker, which is required for US bound flights, let's now have a look at our aircraft taking us over to Hawaii this evening. So tonight we're flying on a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner, very much the stalwart of Qantas's long haul and even ultra long haul network these days. First delivered to Qantas Direct in December 2017. Registration on this one is Victor Hotel Zulu November Bravo. Interestingly, while tonight's flight is a reasonably lengthy 9 hours and 40 minutes, this is absolutely nothing compared to what the Dreamliner can operate for Qantas, operating the longest flights in their network, topping out at a whopping 17 hours and 50 minutes between Perth and London. Other notable mentions include the airline's New York to Auckland and on to Sydney flight, and even its direct flights to Rome and Paris, also its flights all the way to Dallas, Texas. Anyway, when you're at the gate, you can expect airline staff to go around the waiting area to check your passport, and boarding pass has a security sticker. Didn't even realise at this point that a security sticker had been placed in my passport, but yeah, I assume it must be placed there at time of check-in when a staff member verifies your travel details, your itinerary, and you got the correct documents to travel to the US, such as a visa waiver. I can only speculate if you don't get this sticker, you may not be boarding this flight bound for the US. Aside from that, there was the usual extra security check for a US bound flight at the gate. They were selecting certain passengers, although not all, to test their luggage and effects for what appeared to be explosives. I wasn't selected for any additional checks today. Can't really confirm whether it's a random or targeted approach they have here, though I tend to believe it's probably the latter. And just like that, welcome on board one of Qantas's long-haul operating Boeing 787-9 Dreamliners. In total on these aircraft, there's a total of 236 seats. On this free-class configured aircraft, you'll find 42 lie-flat seats up front, along with 28 premium economy seats directly behind. And then out the back, you got 166 standard economy seats in a fairly standard Dreamliner free configuration. This evening I'm sitting in seat 55C towards the rear of the aircraft. Aisle seat this evening, which I was able to select free of charge as a frequent flyer member on the Qantas website at time of booking. As these aircraft fly some of the longest flights in the Qantas network, in my opinion, unsurprisingly, these seats are some of the most featured and most comfortable in the sky flying for Qantas. Seat Guru have seat pitch coming in at 32 inches with a width of 17.2, which is definitely a few inches roomier than your average Qantas aircraft. More in-depth look at the seat features once we get in the sky, but yeah, in short, you get a pillow and blanket at your seat, get a reasonably good fold-back tray table, get a device holder, pretty decent IFE screen as well, comfy adjustable headrest, and even a footrest.
Our flight to Honolulu. My name is Rod, I'm the customer service manager. And on the flight deck we have a captain Jason Grant, first officer Robert Wanderoo, and second officer Debbie.
Yeah.
Along with the Victoria advisor and the entire crew, I'd like to welcome you on board. We'd also like to welcome back our sponsors, American Airlines, and our One World frequent flyer. As you have heard, it is now time to make sure your bags are either under the seat.
In case you're wondering why I'm sitting on an aisle tonight, it is by deliberate choice. While I usually always do prefer a window seat for obvious reasons when filming flight reviews, I do however on long haul flights don't do that well, being stuck at my seat at the window for hours on end. Prefer to keep the hydration up and take occasional breaks to move around the cabin and stretch those legs. Someone who knows they're going to get up a handful of times during a long haul flight, just don't want to be seen as constantly unnecessarily interrupting my seatmate getting a lot of sleep, when I can avoid this by selecting the aisle seat. So I do hope you understand my reasoning behind this decision. We're still going to get some views out the window on takeoff and landing, just won't be quite as clear and as comprehensive as usual. Aside from that, I rightly figured out this is going to be a largely all-night flight flying over the ocean, so apart from the takeoff and landing, really is nothing to see outside anyway, and in any case the windows are locked in the dim position until just before landing into Honolulu. But without further ado, I'll let you enjoy some of Qantas's what seems to be quite a new, very impressive safety briefing demo. Then enjoy our taxi out to the runway, our pre-departure announcements from crew and pilots, and then our takeoff out of Sydney Kingston Smith International Airport this evening.
Take a moment to locate your exit as the cabin crew point them out. It might be behind you. To remember your nearest exit, Count the rows between you and that exit.
Security administration requires that for all flights to and from the United States of America, customers are not to congregate in groups in any area of the aircraft, especially around toilets and galley areas. Your cooperation with this policy is gratefully appreciated.
First Officer Dan Hamilton and First Officer Rob Munro. Welcome aboard Qantas Flight 103 to Honolulu. Just waiting for a couple of aircraft to land and depart for us, and we'll be underway. Expecting mainly flying conditions all the way to Honolulu tonight. Might be a bump or two just in the initial part of the flight, but I expect that to be over relatively quickly. And then fine conditions all the way there. 9 hours is the flight time to Honolulu, and we'll have you there on schedule at 9:15 Sunday morning. So it's actually Sunday morning, a day behind, on schedule, and expecting fine conditions in Honolulu for arrival. I'll leave you in peace now for the rest of the flight. I'll speak to you again as we near Honolulu with an updated weather, also an updated arrival time. And for now, I'll leave with our cabin crew. They're going to make this a wonderful flight, so please sit back and enjoy it with us. Thank you.
And just like that, we're well and truly on our way to cruising altitude of 39,000 feet on tonight's flight, 3/4 away across the Pacific. Anyway, I failed to mention when boarding, there was a pre-departure bottle of still mineral water at my seat. Also at my seat was the IFE headphones for tonight's flight. Just your usual cheap and pretty nasty headphones, to be honest, but yeah, that's all you can really expect in economy, I guess. In economy, at your seat, you'll find a high definition 12-inch seatback entertainment touchscreen, so no need for stream to your own device entertainment on these Qantas Dreamliners. These moderately responsive IFE screens have literally hundreds, if not probably thousands of on-demand entertainment content, including movies, TV shows, audio books and music, kids content, games, in-flight information such as a menu, and also destination guides. Also got the in-flight moving map as well, which is pretty darn decent. Unfortunately, no live TV streaming yet on Qantas aircraft with these IFE screens. Unfortunately, also no aircraft external cameras either. Unfortunately, no in-flight Wi-Fi on Qantas international services such as ours tonight. On some aircraft you may be able to get it when flying over Australian airspace, but that's certainly not applied tonight as we're flying straight out over the Pacific Ocean the moment we're leaving Australia. So overall, the range of content available on Qantas is pretty good. Especially if you like your movies, there's plenty of evergreen content there, and also the latest new release movies. If you are into TV shows, there's quite a lot of content too there, especially from the likes of Paramount and HBO, also some National Geographic content. I'm really a documentary person, however, did find it a little bit light on, unfortunately, in that regards. So if you like me and don't really watch movies, only really documentaries and real life TV, you're probably best downloading some stuff to your own device before the flight. Onto the in-flight moving map. It's pretty good, to be honest, quite responsive and quite adjustable. You can pinch to zoom in and out anywhere on the map as well, and displays plenty of information about the flight route ahead. So overall, no complaints on the flight map. Aside from digital entertainment, you also do have the in-flight magazine, which is not a bad read, to be honest. Probably kill half an hour or so of your time reading. Well worth a read indeed. Even despite the impressive IFE screens, if you do decide to go alone with your own entertainment, you'll be pleased to know there's an in-seat device holder for a convenient hands-free and tray-back table-free viewing experience. Seatback also doubles up as a handy little storage caddy for your own personal devices such as your mobile phone or AirPods case. Also got USB charging there, and you also got AC charging between the two seats, which is very convenient indeed. As I alluded to before, the in-flight food and beverage menu is available on the in-flight screens, which is very convenient. Allows you to have a look at what you might be interested in before the trolley comes around. So yeah, for dinner tonight, looks like we've got 3 main choices: a salad of chicken with whole grains, lemon herb pearl couscous, or the beef brisket with a Bodo sauce. Then in the wee hours of the flight, there's soy crisp and sliced apple for snacks in case you get peckish. And then later on for brekkie before our arrival, it's a choice of a seasonal fresh fruit plate, or your usual scrambled eggs with bacon, sausage, hash brown, tomato and baked beans. The latter certainly sounding a pretty good way to start our trip to Hawaii. Then for drinks, you got the usual international range of drinks on Qantas: beers, wines, soft drinks, hot beverages, tea, coffee, juices, you name it. Pretty good range overall. Even looked like on this flight you can even ask for an amenity kit, which is pretty cool for economy class. So this evening I went for the beef brisket with a Bodo sauce, roast potatoes and onion salsa. That came accompanied by a cream caramel dessert and also garlic bread as well. Also offered a drink from the wide range of beverages available. Asked for an Australian Chardonnay, which yeah, tasted pretty good in my opinion. Even if I don't really drink wine that much, don't know too much about it, so probably not the most qualified person to offer an opinion. Aside from that, we're now several hours into the flight, flying just south of the French overseas territory of New Caledonia. Getting pretty late there, close to midnight Sydney time. So very much time to unwind for the night. Enjoy the very comfortable headrest on the Qantas economy class seat and the generous level of recline, which is much appreciated to get some rest after a very hectic few days, which included a very long 12-hour travel day on the train from Melbourne the day before. So as I unwind for the next few hours, before I try and get some rest, do ask for a beer as well and get Stone and Wood Pacific Ale. So yeah, the beers are getting pretty crafty and pretty fancy on Qantas. Anyway, before I try and get some rest, let's check out one of the onboard lavatories in economy class on the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. So overall, very much a stock standard economy class lavatory that you'd expect on a 787 Dreamliner. Got everything you need, kept in reasonably good nick, almost halfway into tonight's journey. Also got a baby change table as well. Then I was off to try and get some sleep, or at least some sort of rest, before our mid-morning arrival into Honolulu. As a general rule of thumb, I really struggle to sleep on planes, but to my surprise, 3-4 hours later, turned the screen back on. We're only about 2 hours and 40 minutes to our destination. Managed to get a good 4 hours of light sleep, which I think is really going to help get through our somehow repeated Sunday ahead.
We are going to serve a breakfast. There are two options today. There's a hot breakfast, which is scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, hash brown, tomatoes and beans, or a seasonal fruit plate. Once again, we do ask as a courtesy to others around you that you return your seat to the upright position. We do apologise if your meal choice is unavailable. Thank you and a very good morning.
And just like that, about 2.5 hours prior to our arrival, the lighting is slowly restored to the cabin. Breakfast is served alongside tea and coffee, and also juices. Just went with the scrambled eggs option today. Honestly, for dinner and lunch options, on a plane, variety is always good, but when it comes to breakfast, you simply cannot go past a hot English breakfast, in my opinion. And just like that, we really are making good progress to Honolulu. The cabin is still artificially darkened at this point, but a visit to the rear windows of the aircraft do appear to reveal that the sun has risen for a second time today on my Sunday, which makes me really think it's going to be quite an experience on Qantas's upcoming Project Sunrise flights between London and Sydney, where it's touted you'll see the sun rise twice on the one journey.
Relax and get some rest during our flight to share some information about arrival. The customs and quarantine to comply with US quarantine regulations. Please leave any food items, including fruit, vegetables, meat, and dairy products on board the aircraft, or declare them when verbally asked by a Customs and Border Protection officer. Also here in Honolulu, all customers are required to take the Wiki bus to the immigration's hall, as walking is prohibited. Also, the nearest restroom available is within the immigration hall.
Five minutes or so. Beautiful day in Honolulu, as it always is. 22 degrees on the ground at this stage. It's about 76 degrees Fahrenheit. They'll be going for highs of 28 degrees later on today. That's up around 82 degrees Fahrenheit a little bit later on today. Flying conditions all day. We'll be landing towards the east. Good views on both sides of the aircraft as we make the approach. If you'd like to set your watches, time is now 24 minutes past 8 on Sunday morning, showing a landing time of 2 minutes prior to 9 o'clock. They'll have you at the gate in just a couple of minutes after that. On behalf of Qantas and your crew, I'd like to say thank you very much for choosing to fly with us this evening, and we're looking forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future. Good morning.
And just like that, after hearing from our pilot that our arrival into beautiful Honolulu on a lovely, mildly warm Sunday morning is imminent, those infamous Dreamliner lockable windows are starting to be unlocked, and the cabin rapidly turning from night to day. Now time to sit back, relax and enjoy some of the best parts of the landing into beautiful Honolulu this morning. And there afterwards, I'll give my final verdict and thoughts on tonight's evening service with Qantas.
time here is 9:04 a.m. on Sunday, the 19th of January. Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the seatbelt sign is. As always, smoking and vaping and the use of e-cigarettes is not permitted while disembarking or throughout the terminal. Also, please take care when opening your mobile phone, may switch off Wi-Fi. On behalf of all of us here at Qantas, American Airlines and One World, thank you for choosing to fly with us. If you're visiting Honolulu, we hope you enjoy your stay, and of course for those returning home, welcome home.
And just like that, welcome to Honolulu. Great to be finally back in the good old United States of America for the very first time in about 7 years now, since 2018. Actually, first time visiting Hawaii, however, got an action-packed 1 week long schedule ahead of me with plenty of cool stuff to see and do. Really looking forward to it. Even going to get out to the other islands flying around on Hawaiian Airlines. But for now, I've got to face the arrival formalities into the United States on United States soil for the very first time. Which must seem like the oldest ever airport that I've ever visited. Here at Honolulu International Airport, arriving passengers internationally do have to get the Wiki shuttle to the main immigration hall. Here it was a very long wait to get processed this morning, probably about an hour or so. No e-gates here in America unless you're a US citizen, of course, or you got a special card such as Nexus or Global Entry or something like that. So as a foreigner, even from Australia, do expect to be asked questions by the immigration official and have all your documents on hand to prove your reason for travel. Make sure your documents are in order, of course. Also at this point was asked if I had anything to declare. Only had instant coffee and noodles from Australia. So yeah, said I wasn't really sure if I needed to declare that, but they said I did. So yeah, was then escorted to customs where they checked much of my luggage and possessions. So all very thorough here in the United States. They don't muck around when it comes to immigration. Also, especially Hawaii being such an isolated island state, they do take biosecurity very seriously, even for flights arriving from the mainland of the US. So all in all, a very thorough and lengthy process to get through customs and immigration this morning. Took just over an hour. But yeah, at all times I thought the officials were really courteous and professional nonetheless. They just take their job very seriously. And just like that, folks, aloha and welcome to beautiful Hawaii. We're down here at Diamond Head Beach, which is a couple kilometers to the eastern side of the very world famous, very busy, very crowded Waikiki Beach. In fact, we're just underneath the Diamond Head State Monument, which is one of Hawaii's most popular attractions. One of the best hiking spots in all of Hawaii as well. Offers great vantage points of the Honolulu and Waikiki skylines. It's actually a volcanic tuff cone. So very interesting volcanic crater that you can hike all the way up to the top of. So on to last night's flight, which literally actually arrived the same day here this morning, about 12 hours before we actually left in Sydney. Really hard to fault much whatsoever about the Qantas international service last night / same day today. Really not much to fault whatsoever. Everything from the aircraft to the food, the catering, the staff, the drinks, the entertainment was all pretty top notch in my opinion. Staying with the crew, really good service on this one, really friendly crew. Greeted me by surname from the moment I stepped on board, so that was really good, really appreciated that. The seating itself, really comfortable as you would expect for economy class, the best they can possibly make it, because these aircraft do fly the longest flights in the Qantas network. That includes Perth to London or Sydney to New York via Auckland, Perth to Rome, Perth to Paris, etc, etc. They also fly some of the longer flights to destinations such as Dallas or San Francisco as well. So yeah, seating's really comfortable, probably as comfortable as it can be for today's standards in economy class. Probably about 33 inch or so of seat pitch. So so pretty roomy, relatively speaking. Had no issues getting 3 or 4 hours of a light sleep. Not really a sleeper on planes, but yeah, definitely got a little bit of light rest, which was good. Really helped the flight really fly by. On to the catering, it was pretty good on this flight. For a flight that was only 9 hours and running about half an hour ahead of schedule. Got 2 hot meals. The first dinner service was reasonably good. Nothing amazing, the beef brisket, but it was okay nonetheless. Yeah, and then the second hot meal, a full English hot breakfast about an hour and a half before landing, was a real winner. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, the drink selection on board as well was really good as well. They've got premium Australian wines, they've got premium Australian craft beers, they even got some spirits and basic cocktails as well, so hard to complain. The in-flight entertainment on Qantas is pretty good as well. The IFE system, plenty of options. Tends to favour more movies and TV shows. I really like documentaries, so there's not a huge amount in that range. So if you were flying Qantas regularly and you were more into documentaries, definitely recommend you download a few to your own device, such as through YouTube Premium. That's what I usually do when I go flying. But yeah, maybe the only slight downside of the flight, still no free in-flight Wi-Fi on international flights on Qantas. Heard you may be able to get it when you're over Australian airspace on some flights, but this flight goes straight over the Pacific the moment you leave Australia basically. So no Wi-Fi yet on Qantas. Be good to see that in the future, however. The timing is also not bad on this one. The time zone between Sydney and Honolulu is an insane 21 hours. So it's not actually as bad as you seem, because you almost go back entirely a whole day. So we left Sydney at about 8:30 at night, and we arrived into Honolulu about 9 o'clock the same day in the morning. So to me, it just felt like a regular sort of overnight flight, arriving at a pretty reasonable time in the day. Only had a couple hours to kill, go and get lunch and that before I was able to check into my hotel. So yeah, the time zone, the jet lag doesn't actually feel that extreme whatsoever. But yeah, overall, really great flight with Qantas last night. Definitely one of my favourite flights I've ever taken with them. Really great way to fly to America, in my opinion. But yeah, if you have enjoyed last night / today's flight review with Qantas, I certainly enjoyed the flight. Really hope you have as well. If you have, really appreciate it. Do give it a like. Leave your comments down below. Maybe share amongst your family and friends. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, huge thank you once again for all your ongoing support of the channel. But maybe if you haven't already, if you do enjoy my content, whatever brings you to the channel, maybe just consider subscribing to the channel, clicking that bell and notification button on as well. Really would appreciate that. But in the meantime, you also visit my website, aussiejetsetter.com.au, for latest in flight reviews, industry news, destination guides, frequent flyer hacks and more. Maybe even check out my dedicated Instagram page, catch up with what I'm doing around the world in real time. Maybe even check out my dedicated Discord server for fans and community of the channel to discuss all things aviation and travel. But from here in beautiful Hawaii, thanks so much for watching last night's flight review, and until next one, safe travels wherever that might take you.